We got bombshell information coming out about San Diego's top prospect, Ethan Salas. What's going on with the catcher? What's going on with the Arizona Fall League? What's going on, everybody? Christian Pedersen back with another episode of Padres Digest. Welcome back to the show that is well into the... We are in Cancun with Juan Soto enjoying the offseason, not paying attention to anything going on and still in baseball and looking forward to everything. And we've got a ton to talk about in this one about Ethan Salas, the Padres' #1 overall prospect, and some of the other notable names that are going to be featured in the Arizona Fall League. And if you were saying that's boring, whoa, okay, great. You can move on to other videos, but still hit subscribe because we've got tons of Padres stuff going on all off season long. Also, if you want to drop a comment, we love hearing from you guys. It's a pretty diverse group of you out there, baseball fan wise. So there's always a plethora of opinions. All right, Arizona Fall League. Let me give you this is going to be broken down into about 2 minutes of factual updates, and then the rest of it is just going to be rant about what's going on. But we're looking at this report that came out yesterday, or an article from ESPN just talking about what's going on with all sorts of different teams looking ahead into the Arizona Fall League. And the Arizona Fall League is an opportunity for prospects, projects, and alike to get some featured sort of, think of it as like one extended version of the Futures game. So it's not necessarily guys that are like, oh, if he balls out in Arizona Fall League, he's going to end up being the Padres' solution at X, Y, or Z in 6 months. But these are guys that you can sometimes very quickly project out that they are going to be fantastic based off of some of the early overall signs. This first one was, and as always, I apologize, I haven't found the right way to do the text. For those of you that are watching this on smaller phones, I'm here to read it for you. #1 is Lamar King Jr. This article was 3 things about the Padres to look at, and the Lamar King one, there's this first paragraph to set it up, and then I will read this to you, and then I will get back to the opinion part of this first paragraph. The top Padres prospect, Ethan Salas, was originally part of the team's Arizona Fall League roster, but was removed late in the process, allowed him to continue to heal a back injury that forced him to miss most of the 2025 season. The Padres are sending instead an intriguing catching prospect. Nonetheless, 21-year-old King advanced to High A Fort Wayne this season and hit .274 across 2 levels, stealing 21 bags. He is the Padres' number 14 overall prospect. It also says that he spent some time at first base in Peoria. He will likely spend most of his time behind the plate, but he also has the pitching option. So, #1 being Lamar King. Like I said, I'll get back to the Ethan Salas. The Lamar King thing is going to be interesting because setting the table on also the Salas discussion, I think that Freddie Fermin is fantastic and can be the Padres' future catcher for the foreseeable. Like, he's not a 6-month sort of secondary solution, but looking ahead to be like, okay, we might want to dish Diaz to save a little bit of money here, and what are we going to do? Are we going to let Campy try to go 0 for 13 again for an MLBC? Like, we need, at the very least, a backup catcher. So the Padres having a catcher out there that if he's hitting some little bit of power, a little pop, like 21 years old, he's young, he's able to figure something out there, like that could be a guy. This is what I'm saying. Like, these are people that can apply to the Padres roster. Nonetheless, the number 2 that I saw the number 2 story that they saw, this one to me was kind of interesting given where the Padres are at with just in terms of the offseason we're going to have. And Andrew did an awesome deep dive on Tucker Musgrove. But the Musgrove, Kemp, and Montgomery 2023 draft picks that are all going to be making basically their return to baseball after missing a chunk and coming out in this fall league. The Padres, if you look at the overall prospect rankings, I'll pull them up here for you in a second. The Padres, like it or not, have a depleted farm system. So any of these rankings that I show you or get to you is still rankings that are, it might say 1 through 10 for Padres, but that does not make them 1 through 10 for all of baseball. But you look at this, Salas is we'll get to him because that he is the number one prospect. That's why I want to talk opinion wise about him. But you look at the rest of this, and there's some pitching, but it's low. It's single A pitching. There's a little bit of double A sprinkled in there. Bradley Rodriguez is probably going to drop off this list after the amount of MLB service time he has had now in the next year or so. It's not like there is a huge amount of Padres prospects that are just sitting there ready to advance. So, when they're talking about a couple of, not just one arm, but a couple of arms emerging and getting some opportunities to pitch, that is a fun and interesting thing to pay attention to because I guess I was going to say one of two things. Either they're going to become a trade asset or they're going to succeed. I suppose it could all fail. But one arm versus three arms, you don't obviously have to put all your eggs into one basket. But I think that you can hopefully maybe in aggregate in those three arms create a successful, we can rotate through these guys in the bottom of the bullpen when David Montgomery gets hurt or when when Jason Adams goes. We saw the bullpen need guys at the bottom to just come in, not blow it for a couple of games and then go back down to the minors. And if none of these three that we're talking about here end up being the best pros ever, whatever, it's good at the very least to just have a plethora of arms going into any season, and getting some Arizona Fall League playing time is awesome for these. Brandon Carpathios, I'm awful at names. He was an undrafted free agent, has tapped into some basic power, and this one to me just resonated interesting because the Padres did not hit for much power, and I've done a bunch of videos now on this at this point, so I don't need to hammer it home, but it's interesting to always see the Padres have any links to any degree of power. And yeah, again, I keep saying I'm trying to take all of this with a grain of salt and say that this guy is not going to be a 40 home run hitter next year for the Padres, but having the prospects and opportunity of a guy who can hit for 25 in the next couple of years to be internally developed and not something that we have to go find is always interesting. Okay, I said that's the way too long version of all of the what's going on to watch in Arizona Fall League for the San Diego Padres. But I want to get back to this. Ethan Salas. He is now going to miss Arizona Fall League. And this is where this all veers just into opinion now, but Salas being the Padres' number one prospect, to me, regardless of how young he is a person worth extra scrutiny. Maybe not personal scrutiny. I'm not trying to get into his life, but I'm trying to say worth extra scrutiny in terms of his baseball production and valuation. And also, having said that we have Freddie Fermin now, I get that, but it's something like DeVries, every top prospect we've had the last 5 years has been dealt. So, given AJ Preller's history, it is worth paying attention to Salas, if only for that reason, that he could be a person who is traded for the piece that we need at the deadline in the next year or two. And a guy who's went from being like, oh, it's a 2-month injury, he'll be back, it's not going to slow down his baseball development, to, oh, we're slow walking him back, he's young, we're not rushing him back, to now he's missing air. He was slated to come out for Arizona Fall League, but is now missing it. I'm starting to get worried about his value as a baseball asset for the Padres. And I get that that's cold, and I get that that's maybe unfair. He's young. He could still bounce back and be completely fine and continue to be one of the best prospects in all of baseball and a catcher. But at some point also, I don't know, it's just worth paying a little extra attention to. That maybe this guy really is somebody that we shouldn't hold on to for more than he's worth and then not be able to dish him and be stuck with him as a 27-year-old minor leaguer that could never break through because of back problems. I'm not saying we need to go fleece some team. This is where it's less fact and more just ranty, rambly sort of. I want you guys to weigh in on this, but do you worry about Salas being a bust yet? At what point do you move on from hoping that your number one prospect is going to develop to just being like, hey, if he comes back around, great, but we're not going to put any faith in him. I'm not saying I'm fully there yet, but missing this Arizona Fall League to me is a big deal for a guy who it was supposed to be a 2-month injury, and this has now gone on to, we're on like month 9 or 10 of him not being back to any substantial baseball activity. And I think that can now be questioned about how much that is going to delay, if not permanently hinder, his baseball development, or at least his delay. I'm not going to say permanently hinder, but I don't know. A lot to talk about. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And as always, hit the subscribe button if you are so inclined. If not, no worries. We'll talk to you guys soon.